Just a quick little proviso that while we are cheerfully calling all vegans, the opinions and beliefs expressed by them do not always reflect our own. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Calling All Vegans show. I'm your host, Sue Spar, and once again, Vish, our ambassador of anti-speciesism, who lives here at Wishbone Animal Rights Lab, will be sitting in as co-host. He may try to convince you otherwise, but our first guest is no stranger to being on our show. If Torontonians had had any sense at all a few years ago, they would have elected a mayor when they had the chance. He's now aiming to turn the city of Toronto and beyond into one big old free salad. Please welcome Daddy to Yoshin Stan, urban agriculture visionary and creator of the Farmbox project, Mike Gallay. Welcome.
Thank you. That was a very generous introduction. Thank you.
I could have gone on for hours. Nice.
So food should be grown, not raised, and we currently have a broken, insecure, unsustainable animal-based food system. And as our world becomes more urbanized, humans have become less and less connected to nature to the point where we now tend to live in conflict with it. Urban gardening is a great gateway activity to reclaiming our place in the natural world instead of the grocery store being our natural habitat. Mike, you've come up with a simple but wonderful idea that positively impacts animals and nature, gives us more control over our food spending, can help create a sense of connection to our food, and assists in reducing food waste. Farm boxes are not just your mother's windowsill planter boxes. They have a specific ethos attached to them. Can you tell us what inspired you to start the project, how it works, and the benefits?
Sure. I mean, originally there was a kind of sort of this area near our home that had been overgrown and untended to, and it turned out someone was using it as a land bank where they buy a place, they let it kind of go to pot and just hope that it will go up over years. So at some point I started clearing it. I just couldn't look at it anymore, and I started tending to it. And then I thought, maybe I should grow something here. Nobody seemed to mind that. So I built this one little box, and I planted some like basil and oregano in it. And I thought, well, maybe I should do more of them. And then eventually I built like, I think 22 or 28 on this corner, and nobody ever said anything. So I decided maybe it'd be a good idea for me to figure out a source for the wood, because I didn't want to go to Home Depot all the time and source this. And then my neighbor was taking down his fence, and kind of all these things came together at once. And I have since just been collecting fence boards and deck boards, and I upcycle them and I build these planter boxes, farm boxes. Yeah, I mean, essentially the encouragement is for people to grow food in them. And a lot of that had to do with that. If you walk through most streets, regardless whether it's residential, like single family detached housing, whether it's condo yards and apartment yards, they rarely grow food. It's almost always either grass or neglected grass, or just a smattering of shrubs and flowers. Not that there's anything wrong with it specifically, but why not grow some food here?
That's right.
So that's where the encouragement kind of came from, that like, let's actually there's so much land. When you start looking at your city space this way, you start to recognize there's a ridiculous amount of land that we don't use with any purpose. And again, we're kind of disconnected from how we grow food and where it comes from. And obviously that works with, obviously with all the work that you do related to animals, but even just people understanding where like their plants come from. And so even I had to learn a lot from this to figure out how things grow. So Farmbox kind of grew out of that, and it's been, I guess, 4 years, and it's out of control now. Yeah, it's it's too much.
You barely had time to show up here today. So any other kind of benefits that you could, you think about? You have like this immediate access to veganic or organic produce. There's kind of that kind of fosters as maybe community or that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, so they're kind of used in two ways, because it was always meant to be public facing. I was going to give them out for free, and as long as you were going to grow a food plant in it, no problem. So some people would then use it And I would often say, start with an herb garden because it grows easily. You can forget about it for a little while and come back to it and it'll still be there.
Yeah.
And those have worked very well. Some other things, pepper plants here and there, things work well as community shares. And for a lot of people, it's literally just like they had a space in their condo yard and there are tree roots everywhere and they don't know how to grow anything. They want to grow something. And this allows them a little bit of arable land to put in a couple of tomato plants or something of that nature. I tend to look at it a bit more as like sparking an interest in something more than really trying to be this all-in-one solution.
I got you.
Yeah, I can't build
That's
millions of them.
Yeah.
Thousands has already been enough.
Wow. Well, there you go. How many farm boxes are out there in the wild? And do you ever kind of randomly spot them, like where you wouldn't have expected to see them?
They are all over the place. I actually, so I don't, for a while I had, so I kept the number for a while.
Oh, okay.
And then I found it was almost minimizing, it was sort of diminishing to say, because then the next time I would see something like, you were 638, have you hit 700, that kind of thing. Okay. So once I hit 1,000, I said, that's it, I'm not keeping records anymore. Right.
1,000's a good number.
But there's a lot. Yeah. And there are some neighborhoods where there's like a lot of clusters. But the other thing about it is that it's ephemeral. It is not meant to be out there for a century.
Yeah.
And anyone who gets one, I say, if something happens to it, I'm a virus. I'll come back with twice as many. But there's so much waste, and there's sort of no end of old wood and material being thrown away. You just have to kind of be there to actually grab it.
Well, yeah, and I mean, excuse me. So you're taking this wood, you're repurposing it. This is being used for a purpose, and then it's just going back to the earth, really. It's not going back into
pretty
a
much.
landfill.
Yeah, I mean, I don't actually know. It's sort of just like elongating the life of things.
Right.
It's not, again, none of these things are cure-alls that we do, but it's elongating the life of it, and hopefully that's helpful.
Sure. Now, with all the wood cutting you do, it's a sensitive topic. Do you still have all your fingers, or?
How many do you start with?
I've got 10, but I don't know.
Well, it's funny you say that because a lot of people want to get involved and help build the boxes. And my sort of pat line is like, I don't have any liability insurance.
That's right, yeah.
So
some guy cuts off his own head in your garage. Great.
Yeah, I actually had a school in Brampton that, what's his name with the overalls? Another Mike.
Mike Holmes?
Mike Holmes.
I don't even watch television,
yeah, so
but
he built all of these like incredible shops out there, but they don't have enough for like the kids to do. So this guy saw me at some point somewhere and was like, hey, can I get my kids to build it? So I would literally collect all this wood. I would drive it out to Brampton. I would show them how to do it. It was really lovely, except for that it was so much more work for me, and like 9 out of 10 boxes I had to rebuild.
Oh, okay.
So but
you're like, I can make farm boxes better than a kid.
Yeah,
right?
It was a big
My
moment
box
for
is
me.
Better than yours. So, any plans for varied designs, such as maybe a vertical option to maximize space?
So because of how many I make, and this is a prototype. This isn't actually what they look like. And I should have brought you one because now I make balcony boxes because the demand is so great. Right. So they have bottoms and handles, and I'll wrap them in plastic if anyone has any concerns over the nature of the lumber, of any kind of leaching.
Right, yeah.
But I have to streamline it. So it would be nice if I could custom build what everyone wants, but that's impossible, especially if I'm going to do most of it for free. It's just not really feasible. But I do have other projects coming of this nature. Yeah. So one of them is it's spelled potato with a giant T and an O at the end.
I've seen that,
Yeah, so it's potatio. And essentially I'm taking on larger scale areas. So I served, for example, on the public arts committee at this one spot, and we commissioned this work, and the community did not like the work. And it really didn't come out the way that it was supposed to.
Yeah.
So I've always felt a little bit culpable there, and I thought, well, you know what, there's this kind of like this large area, this swath of land that just grows weeds, and then they cut them back, or native plants, however you want to refer to it. And I decided, I think that instead I'm going to turn it into a potato farm. And I've dealt with the city, and the city is, they love the idea, and they will do absolutely nothing to help. So I've determined...
That's probably no shock.
No, it's going to be a beg for forgiveness rather than ask for permission kind of assembly. But you're going to start seeing potatoes pop up in the spring.
Oh, nice.
And they are very much intentional to turn Toronto into a giant potato farm. Which
Sick
is my
man,
love.
you're a
It
sick
is my
man,
love.
huh? This world domination.
Yeah.
Well, then, again, you're someone who has never met a potato you didn't like, or at least one you wouldn't eat. So how many of you
True.
have packed away today so far?
Today
We're looking
so
at,
far.
it's 11:30 a.m.
It's just been blueberries and strawberries. Potatoes don't make it into my morning that much.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
hate to admit that
Oh,
in
okay.
public.
You should have a little potato mascot, maybe, huh?
I should. Well, so I feel bad. I meant to. I'm starting to make like little merch as I run at a considerable loss. And one of them, so in the front of this, for example, I hand draw all of these ridiculous Farmbox logos every time.
I see.
And I
those.
really
They're
have to
good.
make like wood burning and like it's still
Yeah,
too much.
yeah.
But I was going to make one. I have one for potato, and I was going to make my giant potato shirt, but I didn't have a chance in time.
Nice.
Yeah.
That would have been good.
I apologize.
So to give beginners a bit of a confidence boost, can you recommend any simple and hardy plants to start out with?
Yeah.
Not marijuana plants.
Which have been dropped off in many a farm box.
Yeah.
I mean, I always say go with the herb garden first.
Yeah.
It also depends if you're using it just for yourself or whether you're hoping to put something out and the community can use, because that's something nice that everybody can take a little clipping from
Right.
and keep kind of going. Some pepper plants also, because they regenerate quickly. I think shishito in particular is a really good pepper for that, Cubanelle too. But shishito, the nice thing is that one plant will produce hundreds of peppers. So I really do recommend that in particular.
Very good.
Yeah.
Now, you describe yourself as an artist whose work centers on compassion for all creatures at the intersection of sincerity and silliness. He's like, when did I
Yeah, I'm
say
just
that?
trying to remember.
Being
When
both,
ChatGPT wrote that for me.
so being both genuine and humorous sounds like the magic bullet to lower people's defenses to achieve animal liberation. So just before we wrap up, I'd love to hear your vegan backstory.
My vegan backstory. Okay, so I was a film director for many years, and
I love the manner. I love it. No, it's great. I love it.
Well, just prior to that, I was working on another film, which had to do with kind of the information and surveillance state. And we were filming at a farm expo. This would have been in 2007. So this will tell you how long it's been since I've eaten an animal. And I was sitting with
Was there any gray in the beard back then?
There was.
Was there?
There was. Yeah. And thank you for mentioning it.
Distinguished.
Yeah.
Well, you don't want to know what's under this black hair dye.
I heard it was someone's birthday recently. We're at this picnic table, and it's this farm expo where they're showing all the latest, and we're there for RFID technology. That's sort of what we were researching, which had nothing specific to do with animals, but that's used so much in dairy for tagging cows. And as I was eating a beef on a bun with the rest of my crew, it suddenly hit me just looking at this ridiculous contraption that the cows were walking through that I would never be involved in this operation. And I just sort of said, you know what, let me see if I can go a week. And we were literally about to go to Montreal, which is where my family's from, and everyone had been looking forward to eating corned beef and smoked meat and all that sort of stuff. And my crew was kind of like, why would you choose this time to do that? And I mean, really, like, I didn't stumble over it for a second. It just, it immediately felt like the thing to do.
Just resonated, huh?
Yeah. It just sort of was like, oh, how have I not considered what I'm engaging
Once
in?
you know, once it hits you, it's just, it's easy then. So how can people reach you to order boxes or get involved with Farmbox? I mean, I don't feel like, I don't want to overwhelm you too much because it seems like you're already...
It is a little overwhelming. Well, so I'm at the end
Your
of the
wife's
season.
still...
She doesn't understand what I'm up to. But you go to Gallay.com and then you can order a farm box or two. They're all for next year at this point. I do all my deliveries and buildables in May and June. But they're coming in, and I have a list, and I will get to everyone in order. So I'm happy to build for anyone who wants.
You must feel like Santa Claus giving these
It is a little bit like you know what? It was actually better during pandemic when this started because everyone was home all the time,
Yeah.
and there was a lot of like goodwill and communication. And people
Yeah.
really wanted to start growing and having other hobbies, and
What happened?
now
Yeah.
people are
Well,
home.
what
It's
happened?
like
Yeah.
just like, oh, okay,
I know. We've gotten all jaded again,
very
right?
jaded.
So we really appreciate you sharing this very cool initiative. And again, I've got more of your own words to throw back at you.
no.
These are good. These are good. Look, I know empty boxes aren't sexy. I know, but I have to do this. I have to turn the city of Toronto into the largest potato producing farm in the world. I do it to encourage sustainability. I do it for the potato and the oregano and the shishito pepper, as you mentioned. I do it to eat a plant instead of an animal. I do it to try lessening food insecurity. I do it to encourage others to participate and ultimately do it better than I can. I do it in the hopes of being kind and ridiculous and audacious and helpful. Thank you very much. I appreciate
My
it.
pleasure. Thanks, Sue. Thank you.